Live in a second, but it's fine.
And we're live.
All right, we're live, but no worries. Hi everyone. My name is Sarah. I am the Real Talk host with Pandea Health. We are joined by two lovely guests today. I'm going to introduce them in a moment, but before I say that, two housekeeping things. First of all, happy Pride Month. We're going to be talking about that today. Super excited. I'm with the expert, so we're looking forward to a great conversation on that. And second thing, as always, feel free to leave questions, comments. Please keep it, appropriate, but at the same time, no filter. So feel free to ask anything that comes up either during or after the live, and we'll try to get to it. So without further ado, I am going to introduce my guests. I am joined by Esther and Joni from Sex Ed Bootcamp, and I want you guys to give your own introduction. I feel like I won't do it justice. So if you want to tell a little bit about yourself and Sex Ed Bootcamp, that would be great.
So we're sexologists and sex researchers, and we've been speaking at college campuses for the last 12 years, all over the country. And we've been working with Pandea Health, trying to get out the word about how you can get birth control and other things sent to your house through our students and try to get them hooked up better, because quite frankly, we're a little scared about this Roe v. Wade situation. So, and it's Pride Month, which is really phenomenal. So we're really awesomely happy to be here and talk about why it's important for LGBTQ people to have this conversation.
So tell us a little bit about why you wanted to do this event, Sarah.
Cool. Yeah. So first of all, very excited to have you guys. Actually, okay, after I say this, could you explain what a sexologist is? Because now that I think about it, I realize that I don't really know what that means. So I don't know if the general public does, but before we get into that, so it's Pride Month, and we wanted to reach out to individuals who were either part of the LGBTQ plus community or just felt comfortable speaking about being part of or just knowing about the community better than someone like myself, a cis straight woman. And I also want to learn tips about how to be a better ally. I think, I know some ways to do so, but I'm sure I am not an expert. So would love to hear from you guys about that. And also we will touch a little bit upon Roe v. Wade in a separate live. So we're actually going to do a little bit of a series with this, which is super exciting. So today we're going to talk about the basics, Pride Month. We're going to keep it kind of lighthearted. And then next time we're going to get into that nitty gritty about why it's important to get your birth control under control, regardless of whether you're having sex with men or women. Being able to have that autonomy over your body is super important. So we're going to have another live about that. Tonight we're going to keep it fun. We're going to keep about talking about Pride Month. So anyway, sorry. Going back, sexologists, what is that?
So sexologist is a person who studies the science of sex. So we actually went back to school. This is not our first education or our first jobs. And we've been doing this for a very long time as LGBTQ advocates, because we're a couple of 19 years. So we've been married twice, actually.
With diamonds,
And, we got a little Pride stuff on just to celebrate Pride Month. But sexologists can speak about sex and sexuality from a very objective perspective, because it's scientific and you can't really argue with science.
Well, you can, but
but let's not.
Today,
let's not. It's like math. Okay.
Right.
So far today, 2 + 2 is 4. So we'll keep it that way. But studying the science of sex is kind of cool, because you also learn how to take out the biases that a lot of people have that are naturally instilled upon us by our community and by media sources, and just whatever our exposure level is to people as we grow and move across this planet. So we've, been on the planet a whole lot longer, obviously. And I will tell you, I came out when I was 19.
Me too.
It wasn't cool.
Yeah.
Life has changed a lot. And I'm really glad to see the changes. And yet here we are on Pride Month talking about all kinds of stuff that might come down the road that might hurt us. So we celebrate today and this month because we were repressed for a very, very, very long time.
So in a past life, a very long time ago, when I was an undergrad, my focus was women's and gay history. So I happen to have a little bit of a soft spot for talking about Pride and where we come from. What people need to understand is one of the reasons we celebrate Pride in the month of June is because it was in June of 1969 that the Stonewall riots happened. For those of you who don't know, Stonewall Inn was actually, and it still is, a very, very cool gay bar in the West Village And at the time in 1969, it was so enforced that sodomy laws in this country, which were overturned at future Supreme Court decision, Bowers versus Hardwick. But at the time in 1969, it was illegal to practice gay sex, quote unquote. Okay, so that's really the answer. So police used that for systematic institutionalized homophobia that was enacted in police raids. So when bars like the Stonewall would welcome people of all different gender expressions and all different, orientations, then police would come in, and sometimes there'd be a little notice, sometimes no notice, batons flaring, usually no guns fired, but certainly there was a lot of beatings, there were a lot of arrests, and it was really dangerous to be gay then. So it's kind of something that a lot of us don't know when you're under the age of 40, right? Like that's a real part of our history, is that it was really dangerous to walk down major city streets and hold hands with someone of the same gender, or express any kind of physical affection in public, let alone socialize with other people who identified as LGBTQ. So one weekend in the West Village, when the police were coming, and everybody, particularly the trans members of the community at Stonewall that night, said, "Oh, hell no, we are not going to take this anymore." And they literally created a standoff, and they fought back against the police riots. So it's that kind of response and that kind of fierce fight for liberty that we celebrate when it comes to Pride Month. And that's why we celebrate it in June, right? So it's one of the reasons that this is so monumental right now, too, because one of the things that we don't necessarily do very often in this culture is learn from our history, right? So it's one of the reasons why we are seeing a huge rise of anti-Semitism and neo-Nazism rise across the planet, right? Why? Because we're losing the generation that survived World War II. So, right, we're losing the generation of our grandparents, my grandparents, who survived the labor camp, who would tell stories and say never again, and at the same time didn't want to tell those stories to their kids, right? Like those are not bedtime stories. As my grandmother used to say.
So
Right.
when I would walk down the street at age 19 with short hair and kind of what would now be looked at as masculine expressing clothing, and people would throw cans at me and call me dyke, that was reality back then. Today's young people are brought up in an entirely different planet, where you've got started with Logo years ago on TV.
Will and Grace.
Grace, queer
Oh,
people in every show, trans people that are now major stars and actors and actresses. And it's a different world. But you forget what happened in the back when people got repressed. And that happens in a lot of repressed groups.
Absolutely true. And I think one of the other scary things to think about moving forward, and as you said, Sarah, we're going to talk about this at another time.
Yeah.
But one of the things to remember is that legally, constitutionally, gay rights, and particularly the right to marry, marriage equality, is founded under the assumption that under the 14th Amendment, one of the rights that we have as American citizens is the right to privacy. That was actually determined by the Roe versus Wade decision, which speaks to the issue of abortion, but it actually is a much deeper, more fundamental conversation around bodily autonomy. So it was actually the passage of Roe v. Wade that led to the overturning of sodomy laws in this country, which means that gay sex is no longer, or at least what was categorized as gay sex, anal penetration is no longer an illegal act in this country. The fact that they used to dictate which sex acts were legal and which were not is a bunch of horseshit too. Like not for nothing.
Considering 85% of people have anal sex at some point in their life.
I didn't know that, but wow.
At least once.
Regardless of orientation, right? Like, so like, don't knock it till you try it, right? Don't yuck somebody else's yum. But at the same point, understand too that certain acts might have greater risk associated with them when it comes to STI prevention. So understanding that that's important to have as a part of your conversation, whatever your sex play is, right? And however that looks for you. But when it comes to our rights and celebrating Pride, we have to remember too this month that while we have fun in June and while we're dancing in the streets this month, as of the end of this month, it's about registering to vote. It's about motivating each other to turn out, to understand that a threat to Roe is a threat to us all, and that gay rights hinges on the historical right to privacy. So these days of dancing in the streets for Pride could be numbered, right? Like that's a really scary reality because we've lived that.
And this is why we need allies.
Right.
Because allies are going to carry us through this.
Exactly. Because, the same way abortion and the right to choose is not just a cisgender women's issue, right? It's not just an issue for people who can get pregnant. It's an issue for all of us. The same way that gay rights are a human right. It's about the pursuit of happiness. Whatever happened to the basic reading of the first line of the Declaration of Independence, right? So if the pursuit of happiness is supposed to be guaranteed to every citizen, we need to be able to dance in the streets the same way everybody else can, whether you're dancing with someone of the same gender or someone who's not, or someone who's trans, or regardless. Like, it's all about being able to pursue that happiness, whatever that looks like for you.
And the land of the free.
That's
So
right.
everybody should have equality in their freedom and their expression.
That's right.
Absolutely. That was such a great answer. You guys touched upon so many things, which is awesome. And I think it's really important to note that specifically people of my age and younger, I'm a Gen Z, I'm in my early 20s. So for us, I was talking about this with Esther earlier, like we don't know what it was really like before to not have full bodily autonomy in regardless related to abortion, or whether you're able to marry or date someone of the same sex. And so it's just crazy to think that we could be going back to that. And I really feel for people who have also been through that. And I'd love to talk a little bit at the end about how to educate like the younger generations in a way that's still like palatable for them. Because as you said, like the Holocaust is not exactly a bedtime story, but definitely still something that is important to keep people aware of so that we don't go back to that. So I love that you touched upon all of those things. But really quickly, before we get into that, if you guys could just tell me best ways to like celebrate Pride Month, whether that's literally going and having a good time, or calling your senators, or I know you touched upon this a little bit, but if you have any like specifics or any places in Florida, that would be great.
Well, the first thing that I would suggest is go to a Pride event.
Yeah.
If you really want to see what it's about, go and see regular people having a good time.
Yeah.
And they're just really colorful. And that's the part that makes it all kind of fantastic, is that, yeah, people are going to dress up. They're going to wear these funny beads. Yep. It's kind of like Mardi Gras with rainbows and unicorns. And you never know what you're going to see. And people of the same gender will be holding hands. And some people will be of genders that you might not be able to clearly identify. So if you start to meet somebody that you really can't really identify, and you want to be respectful, that's really the most important thing, is that love is respect. And if you meet somebody and you just go up to them and you introduce yourself, you say, hey, my name is Joni, and I go by the pronouns she and her. What's your name, and what pronouns would you like me to call you? That's respect, because a lot of people are going by we and they. In fact, we were actually talking about this earlier. We think everybody should be y'all,
Really?
Or we and they, because it takes the question out of the problem.
And
right?
frankly, if we give Texas the credit for giving us y'all, it'd really piss them off immensely.
Well, Florida
so
can
I'm
take
happy
some
with that.
credit.
Yeah.
So there are Pride events all over the country, all month long.
Yep.
So there might be something local to where people live. Yes, please call your senators. Scream about gay rights.
Scream about the Equality Act.
Equality Act. Scream about, women's autonomy.
The Women's Health Protection Act, which is
Right.
dead now, but we need to keep talking about it.
And register all your friends to vote.
That's right.
Because we're going to need every single human on the planet next time around.
And right now, honestly, we live in an amazing time. Back in our day, it was really hard to find community events unless you knew people or knew the right magazines to read, and have to go to a gay bar or a gay-owned establishment to find the right,
to find a tribe.
Yeah, exactly. To find your tribe and to find where they advertise. Now, honestly, pull out your phone and Google Pride events near me, and you will find your local community center, your local town, the next town over. Somebody's doing a march, somebody's doing an event, somebody's doing a festival or a music fair. I will say that in the climate that we're in right now, especially if you live in a rural or very conservative area and you're going to go to a Pride event, please go in numbers. Like, go with the group, pull a group of friends, mixed gender if possible. Just for safety's sake, honestly, I just, every time we turn on the news now, there's some other horrible story about another mass shooting. And it's Pride Month and it's the first day, and I'm just really scared. Like, I have a little trepidation for the level of hate that is acceptable to wear on the outside in this country right now. So,
Sarah, remember that we live in Florida,
Yeah.
where the Pulse shooting happened,
Right.
in Orlando, where we had friends who used to go there all the time.
Yeah.
So we understand what happens at gay bars
Mhm.
when people get angry and pull out guns.
it's
So
it's really bad.
please be all safe. Go party safely.
Yeah.
Be great allies. And like I said, introduce yourself and just be cool.
Yeah.
You know, it really
Right.
doesn't take much.
Yeah.
to
It's not
be
that
nice.
hard, really.
You know, all you have to do is just be nice.
Well, think about it. The music's great. The food's going to be great. The drinks will be strong. Like, honestly, just go have a good time.
Bring
You're
your
going to make
dancing shoes.
Bring your dancing shoes. You're going to make
Yes.
a lot of friends. That's the other fun thing about Pride is that the events are, particularly depending on where you are, the events are really an opportunity to be able to express that level of joy and celebration of being different, of being special, of feeling like a unicorn. And I think that that's something that we all need to learn how to embrace more, right? Like just celebrating your own inner unicorn. And how do you present in a unique and special and different way? And that's the best way to become an ally and to identify with the things we have in common as opposed to the things that set us apart.
You know, so if you ever go and you drive by and you see somebody has like a flag like this outside, that shows they're probably LGBTQ. Now that flag's changed.
Yes, actually.
We
it
have
has.
a
We
new
made
one.
one.
flag.
There's purple in it now.
It's so cool.
Well, it's actually very detailed now.
It's
Yes,
gotten
it's very cool.
I don't even know if you'll be able to see it.
Oh, yes, actually, you
because
can. Yay.
Oh, wow.
Look
Isn't
how
that fun?
colorful this has gotten.
Yay.
So they've now included trans people, lesbians have their own colors,
Mhm.
and the rainbow. So everybody's included. It doesn't matter how you identify. If you don't want to pick a letter, that's okay because, today's young people are gender non-binary, they're gender non-specific, and they don't want to be pigeonholed into a corner or a letter sometimes, which I completely understand.
Yeah, more power to you.
So some people call themselves queer, and that's cool.
Mhm.
So, queer is a word that used to be a bad word, and we took it back.
Okay.
And that's a funny thing too. Like depending on the age range of the people you're talking to, certain words are cool and certain words are names to claim are not. So some people will have a problem with queer, and then a younger generation is like, no, I really like that word. Like that really applies to me. So again, these are wonderful, fun conversations to have. Like, what words do you use when you identify as a member of the LGBTQ community? Just as of a point of conversation. Right? Because some people, like I said, some people queer is like a slur they heard growing up and it pushes their buttons. Right? Whereas somebody will say, no, I'm a lesbian or I'm a dyke or whatever they're going to claim. That's awesome. It doesn't really make a difference. It's like picking a name. It's like people who give themselves a new name when they grow up and decide they don't like the name their parents gave them. It's pretty resilient. And I think it shows the level of creativity and beauty of celebration of differences that we can all be capable of.
Yeah, I really like that. I like did I cut you guys off?
No.
Okay. I like that the idea of flipping the script and just thinking about it as in like a positive light. And it's, at the end of the day, like, it's just a name. Like it's something that you can easily accept. I was listening to a podcast the other day and the girl was saying how when she first brought a girl home for the first time, like she had previously dated men and then had brought this girl home for the first time, and she was so nervous to introduce her to the parents, but she was like, honestly, it's just like introducing anyone else. It's just getting to know them for the person they are, and who cares that it's a man or a woman or whomever. And I thought that was like a really interesting way to put it, and these are things that I wouldn't necessarily think of growing up in a family that is primarily straight. And so I think it's great that we can have these conversations and understand. And that kind of brings us into our next topic of how you can be a better ally. If you have any tips for that, any like things, I'm always down to hear recommendations for like reading content, shows, things like that. I'm not a huge reader, to be honest, but love a good podcast. But if you have any tips on that, that would be awesome.
There's some great movies to watch, and there's some recent movies like Love, Simon. There's a show Dear Heaven Hansen. There are some amazing trans movies. Enlighten yourself, expose yourself to new things, because everybody's different. And there's really no one way for gay people to express themselves. There's no stereotypes anymore. So you're going to just be looking at people being who they are and feeling and loving and hurting and getting the shame. And, remember, we all have a lot of guilt and shame from a lot of different sources. Try not to add to somebody else's guilt and shame level.
Seriously.
It's just, if we could just help each other a little more, that'd be great.
And I think actually that's a really great point as to being a great ally also just comes from a place of being kind, like being a kind human, be nice, share a compliment. They're free.
Right.
and learn how to take a compliment. Like that's also, I think, especially as women, like I think it's really hard. We're ingrained to like take care of other people. So it's really hard sometimes for us to take a compliment just on its face value. So I feel like do that for your queer friends for the month of Pride. Like just give them a compliment, tell them you see them, you honor them, you understand their struggle, or you'd like to understand their struggle. And what does that mean to them? And how can they explain it to you in a way that you can wrap your head around, right? Like for me, growing up in New York, and at the time, it was very hard for me to kind of place out of my experience because I was raised as a nice white Jewish girl from Queens. I mean, that was really simple, right? And everybody assumes you're straight until proven otherwise, right? Like that's just how this culture rolls. But
especially in the Jewish community, for
That-
sure.
yeah.
I'm also Jewish.
And
so I
make
know.
no mistake, actually, I actually think that as Jews, we're actually really lucky because we actually have at least a little level of conversation and opportunity for for secular Jews in particular. For those of us, like we talked about, for those of us who are cultural Jews, right? Like that, where like it's all about the food and the guilt, right? It's not about like the strict scripture. But I feel really, really a lot of camaraderie and a lot of sorrow and a lot of mixed emotions for those of our LGBTQ friends and family that are from much more conservative religious cultures other than Judaism, right? Like I think the conservative church does a real number on LGBTQ young people. And no matter what your age, if you try to come out, you're going to get a whole ration of grief. And a lot of us don't understand the struggle that others have walked to be where they are today, right? So if you have a friend who's queer and comfortable and out and strong, ask them how they got there. Because frankly, that's going to be an awesome story. And it's not going to be a 5-minute story. So like sit down, get comfortable and pour yourself a drink because it might entail hard liquor.
And just listen and just
Yeah.
listen and be there because you know what? Maybe they need to tell you their story. And maybe that after that experience, the friendship that you're going to have is going to be so much deeper and more meaningful. And that's what makes family and community really true and strong. And understanding somebody else's struggles is hard to listen to because you have to, contend with your own inner biases.
Yeah.
And that's really hard. And like I said, we went to school and they had to like literally beat it out of us to not be biased against sex with old people. And,
Right.
Well, guess what? We live in Florida. Old people have sex.
All the
Trust
time.
me, all the time and not safe. So that's another story. So, so you have to, just open your mind and open your heart and go to an event.
I will tell you,
Vote for people that are
Yeah.
that are pro LGBT,
yeah, absolutely.
pro-choice.
Yep.
And show up.
Yeah. And you know what? And don't discount the older members of your community, your family. I will tell you, we actually now live in a community that has a very rich, diverse community of people that are older than 55. And what's really interesting is that so many of them have gay kids and gay grandkids and LGBTQ recognizing grandkids. It's very interesting what happens when you start talking to grandparents who are enlightened and, for lack of a better word, woke, right? Like they're like, I want to be woke. I want to support my grandchildren. I want to be the safe place that they can come and know that if they need me to march, I'm there with them.
Right.
That's awesome. It doesn't get any better than that.
And then they ask us to help them with some of the vocabulary because like the old vocabulary, if you called a trans person tranny,
Oh God, no, please. Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah, please no.
Bad word.
Right.
Word.
Mhm.
They're trans, period. They're
Right.
not trans anything else.
Right.
It's just trans.
Right.
And it gets confusing for people.
But
And we understand
yeah.
that it's confusing. We've had to grow and learn too.
Right.
So
And it's important to get it right, to not offend people, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also really wonderful and heartwarming to know that they want to be right.
they're trying. They're trying.
Yeah.
Let them try.
Awesome.
Give them the credit, even if they, mess it up a little.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's true. It's really
From a good place.
Yes, it really does. And I think, unfortunately, there are situations, of course, and I would like to call attention to that, where it is not easy to have these conversations. And we recognize that. Like I can imagine, but I think, as you guys said, it's very special to be confided in about someone's personal life. I mean, just as you would confide in anyone about anything, I think it's really nice telling someone, being able to get that deep. And I love sharing with grandparents. I know my grandparents, they get very confused on all of the pronouns, but they're learning. Yeah, they're like, okay, like I want to understand. I just like, can you explain it again? And it's really sweet. And right, it's okay. I think also giving yourself and other people a little bit of grace here and there, because sometimes, right, like you have to understand that I can't say every time, but most of the time people, if they're genuinely asking questions, they're probably just trying to learn and get a better grasp on it. So I think, yeah, sometimes, you know, if it takes them a little bit longer, feel like, okay, no, they're not trying to offend me. They're just truly confused. And of course there were other terms used, even when I was in middle school, saying I'm not going to say it, but the F word, FAGGOT, was like not acceptable, but we didn't really know what that meant. Right. And I even remember like saying someone was gay was kind of like an insult, which is just like so silly. And I don't think it's like that anymore, but I'm sure it is another.
Again, it depends on where you are, right? Like it's all relative.
Yeah, that is a good question. Right? Yeah, so, I think.
And you know what? And as an ally, maybe that's a good way to start. If you know that you've got a queer friend, say, hey, you know what words are you okay with?
And what words really push your buttons?
What words are you not okay with? Right.
Yeah.
Because when I was younger, queer was a bad word. Now I'm okay with it.
And when you ask that and they say these are the words that trigger me, there's a story there. Like may not be a fun story, but it's going to be an interesting story.
Right. So just respect the words, and if they choose to share the story, then that's up to them.
Yeah.
But you know, the other thing about being an ally is please don't focus on whatever's going on somebody else's genitals or what kind of sex acts they're doing. Nobody cares. They're humans.
And it's none of your business.
They're humans being. So let's just all be humans being.
Right. And you wouldn't want someone asking you like the specific details of your sex life if you are a straight person. I mean, maybe you would, but either way, you know, if someone chooses to share that, great.
I find it really amazing, right? Like people are like so fascinated with, have you had surgery? Like if they made someone who's trans, like, oh, tell me your surgical level. It's like, you know what? A, none of your business unless you're going to take my clothes off. Right. And B, like, do you walk up to any straight man and say, how big are you? I got a tape measure right here. Like,
prove it.
No, nobody does that, right? God forbid.
Maybe
right?
that should be a thing. with condoms, if they say they're not going to wear a condom because it doesn't fit.
Oh no.
Really?
Right? Yeah, exactly. That's definitely a thing if they say that, right? For sure.
Yeah, no, I love that. So yeah, this is a perfect segue into kind of our last topic. So you kind of touched upon this again, but any resources that are good for people?
Absolutely. One of the resources I definitely want to shout out to, of course, is Pandea. So we are big supporters of the idea of covering all your bases. Okay, what does that mean? Especially for those of you who are listening, who are questioning your sexual identity, your orientation, you don't identify with a particular letter, and you triple your chances of getting a date on a Saturday night. And that's all great. No judgment.
Love that. Yeah.
The issue we have with that, though, is that if you're going to play, especially over various and sundry genders with your sex partners, please not only make sure you're practicing safer sex every single time for every single act, but also think about especially if you are physiologically capable of getting pregnant. Okay, even if you're on hormone suppressors, if you are physically capable of getting pregnant, you have to consider birth control as part of your bodily autonomy conversation. You know, one of the big issues around the concept of Roe v. Wade being overturned is that we will no longer have agency over our bodies. We need to start exercising agency over our bodies on a day-to-day basis to understand how important that really is.
So if you've got the biology that you might get pregnant, you might want to consider having an IUD put in, because what if they stop or make it more difficult to get oral birth control or other forms of birth control?
And it's coming.
And find out what kinds of birth control you might want to use, get them, sign up for a subscription plan, and make sure that you get it on a regular basis, because you don't want to go to a pharmacy and have somebody who doesn't believe in giving you birth control turn you away.
Mm-hmm. That can
because
happen.
We've had that happen in other states, and it can happen again.
We also believe in keeping emergency contraception, whether it's Plan B or Ella, in your medicine cabinet or in your sex toolkit, right?
That's Plan B.
We are huge fans of One Condoms. They are our favorite brand of condoms on the market. They're triple tested. They are the only condom on the market that is approved by the FDA for anal sex. So Pride Month. Hello. So snap out to One Condoms. We're big fans. And The other shout out we would love to give is especially because it's Pride. All of our courses that we ever do are incredibly inclusive and very diverse. And as Sarah mentioned, we're a couple. We're together 19 years. So coming up on 20 years there.
Wow.
She doesn't kill me first. So
it's okay.
We're in light of the threat of Roe falling, we are actually making all of our courses free for the summer. So what that means is that our sex ed boot camp, which usually costs thousands of dollars for universities to hold as a live event, which is a taped version, as well as some COVID-friendly, other additional safer sex information. We also have a second course called Joyful Consent, and a third course that's always free called Loving the Skin You're In. Please take any of these classes on our site. It's called lovinglight.co. The code is ROE, ROE, to remind us as to why we need to remember why we need to have this conversation and why we need to have it now. So we're really grateful to just have had the opportunity to have this conversation.
Yeah, no, this is so great. And I think, again, this is like such a perfect example of how easy it is to talk to people about these things. Actually, let me backtrack. I understand that sometimes it is not easy to open up about these things, but if someone is willing to have the conversation, then I think it's okay to feel vulnerable and on either end of it. I think that's the only way to learn is by immersing yourself in that. So I think that's really cool. And one other quick thing with Pandea, and again, we'll get into this either in a different live with you or with Dr. Gann in our next real talk with her. But birth control is necessary for things other than not getting pregnant.
Exactly.
So menstrual flow control.
Absolutely. And even if you're someone that is like, I am never going to have sex with a man, I am only going to have sex with women, there is unfortunately the risk of being sexually assaulted, but also even more beneficial than that, being able to control your period. We are all periods optional at Pandea Health. Being able to,
awesome.
It's the best thing ever. Honestly, I was like, why?
I'm so jealous.
Yeah. Oh my God. I know. I was like, why did I ever get my period every month? And that it's mostly with the pill, patch, and ring. But if you do have the hormonal IUD, that usually also kind of stops your period, or sometimes you get a withdrawal bleed. But so it's really great. And again, benefits, so many benefits. Also, I don't know if someone's banging above my head. I don't know if you can hear that. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh my God, I want to move, but I live in a studio, so there's nowhere to go. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Anyway,
our dog's not barking. It's a miracle.
We have a cat crying in the other room.
That's sad. Well, anyway, let me quickly.
But I think that it's important what you were saying, Sarah, is that people that have the biology to get pregnant but identify as part of the LGBTQ family need to understand that menstrual flow control is empowering. Getting your period when you're trans is really against everything you want your body to be doing.
Right.
So if you want to empower yourself, you can then take control over that part of your body. Yeah. And, obviously with the help of your doctors, because you may be taking other hormones.
Right.
So, but I think that that's a really empowering option that we never had.
Yeah.
No, it's so great.
I didn't have to get my period all the time, and I had really bad cramps.
Me too.
Really
horrible
messy
periods.
That's the best part.
Anything to control that.
Yeah, like birth control. I mean, the best thing about it is being able to regulate your flow a little bit better, because the bleed that you get if you're on the pill, patch, or ring is not even a period. It's just a withdrawal bleed from the lack of hormones that you take on the off week, which you don't even have to do. And women don't have to bleed every month, or people with uteri, and it's that's not really talked about, and it won't. Your uterus isn't going to build up and back up. That's not a thing. If anything, it actually just like thins out a little bit. And we'll get into that with Dr. Gann. You can check out her TED Talk on periods optional, but it's really great, and just another way to feel more empowered regardless of how you identify. If you're a person who has the biology to get pregnant, I love that terminology. It's just good to have the protection. It really is. And you just, accidents happen. That's why it is good to have Ella. You can get that prescribed with your birth control if you use Pandea Health, which is great. And then that way you just have it. And Plan B, it's not as effective for people who have a higher BMI. Sometimes it's hard to access at your local pharmacy. It's also, it shouldn't be embarrassing because you are being responsible by taking it. But at the same time, it's not the most fun experience having to go pick that up. I would rather just reach into my medicine cabinet and get something.
Yeah.
Or in your mailbox,
Yeah.
go out and say,
In the
"Oh,
mailbox.
look, here we are."
And it's
We
discreet
love that.
packaging. We love that. And same with, actually, you guys mentioned One Condoms. Theirs is also very discreet packaging, which is great. So yeah, all good stuff. Anyway, okay, this was really great. Before we wrap up, do you have any final takeaways you'd like to say about Pride Month, about any plugs you want to give for Sex Ed Boot Camp? Anything you'd like to add? Please plug yourself. Pandea Health and Sex Ed Boot Camp, we love you guys. So
we love you guys too.
Thank you.
We're very grateful for the Mutual Admiration Society and the love that we share with you guys, and the camaraderie we share fighting for reproductive freedom, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that I will tell you honestly, I'm 53. I don't usually announce that, right? So, but I will tell you, I am officially terrified as to what's going to happen to this country when women lose, and when all of us lose agency over our bodies. It is a very dangerous time. And I think that, like I said earlier, while we're dancing in the streets, take each other's phone numbers, take each other's emails, and get ready. Because after we party, there's work to be done.
Yeah.
And we are very excited and ready for the fight. And at the same time, we're really excited to educate, because honestly, at this moment, it's the most powerful thing we can do. So if there's any way we can be of help, visit us at sexedbootcamp.com, visit us at lovingright.co, take our classes
Watch
for
us on
free.
Insta,
Yeah.
follow us on whatever.
Pandea's talks
on-
like this.
Absolutely. We are here to educate.
Yeah.
So go and watch our shows, watch our programs.
Be good to each other.
Be kind, show love.
Dance.
Yes,
Put on your
I love
dancing
that.
shoes. It's Pride. That's what
Yes.
it's all about.
Yeah.
It's like nobody's watching, baby.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Because you know what? You get to our age and you realize the whole time you were worried about what other people thought and restricted
No
your
one cares.
decision making based on what other people were going to think of you. Guess what? You get to our age and you realize nobody was ever thinking about you in the first place. They were thinking about themselves.
That's right. So first, love yourself.
Yep.
Fly,
Live
fly, fly,
and
fly.
live out loud, my friends.
I love that. Oh, that was such a perfect way to end. Wow. I don't have anything to add to that. This was really great. Yeah, as y'all said, y'all love that. I say
Wow.
you guys a lot, and I'm really trying to get out of that.
It's hard.
Yeah. But it's such, I don't know if it's a generational thing, but yeah, y'all is just neutral. It's a good one.
Love y'all.
But yes, follow social media. For us, it's at Pandea Health. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We have a TikTok now. We're trying to grow that, which is exciting. Are you on TikTok?
Not yet,
Not yet.
but it might happen.
But we are on YouTube also.
We are, yeah.
YouTube is great, easy to share the links, and yeah, talk about your friends with all of this. And on that note, that is all I have for everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy Pride Month.
Thank
We will
you.
be
Happy Pride, everybody.
Yes,
Be proud.
we'll be back soon with another live specifically on Roe v. Wade, potentially a third. We shall see. And in the meantime, have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks. Bye.